everyone's journey is very, very different. I feel like a lot of time people try to follow a path that was successful for someone else, but they don't realize that no path is the correct path. Everyone has their own path and their own timelines and their own things. So like I might have friends that got married at 21 and they lived like a great life, and now they're traveling together with their partner, and I might be like, damn, I should have done it that way. I should have done this. I should have done that. But I have to realize that that was their path. And if I would have taken their path, I might be unhappy right now. If they would have taken my path, they might have been unhappy. So we have to understand that it's not a race. There's no perfect way to do it.
Welcome to the Travel Not to Escape podcast. I'm your host, Jolene on the Go, solo female traveler and creative entrepreneur. Think of me as your skydive instructor, empowering you to take the leap into solo travel to push past your fears and transform your life. Join me every Tuesday as we explore the world of solo travel with purpose and discover how you can use it for your personal transformation, learn how to make meaningful connections around the world, and reignite your spirit of play. We aren't just talking about traveling to find ourselves anymore. We're all about doing the work to understand who we authentically are, breaking through our limiting beliefs, and taking the leaps to manifest lives we are excited about. Through interviews, solo episodes, and meditations, each episode is packed with practical tips, strategies, and inspiring stories from guests who have transformed their lives through solo travel. Whether you're a seasoned traveler or just starting out on your journey, the Travel Not to Escape podcast is here to inspire and empower you to solo travel with purpose. Strap on your helmet. We're about to jump headfirst into the journey of a lifetime. Are you ready? Let's go. Welcome, fellow navigators. Before we dive into this week's episode, I want to invite you all to get your passport to connection. What is that? Well, we talk a lot about connection here on the podcast, how to connect with yourself as well as make meaningful connections with others. But I know it's not as simple as going to a meetup event and making instant best friends, at least not always. And there's work that you need to understand yourself and what you're looking for in friendships, where to meet them if you're traveling or moving to a new city, how to handle rejection and filter for like-minded friendships, and how to maintain these friendships over time and distance. So if you've ever felt the pangs of loneliness, and well, who hasn't, and wish you could just figure out all these secrets to these questions, then Passport to Connection may just be for you. So this is a one-day live virtual workshop and monthly mastermind where I'm going to empower you with all of the knowledge and actionable steps and direction so you can make yourself more magnetic, reignite your spirit of play, and in turn, identify and attract all those beautiful soul-aligned friendships that you're looking for. And this isn't just a workshop. This is a community in itself. So head over to travelnottoscape.com/friends to get more information and sign up. And hurry, this is going to be an intimate workshop, so make sure to save your spot today. And with that, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to part 2 of this episode with Elky Ramirez. In our last episode, we got to know Elky a little better and hear how she started her digital nomad journey and her transformation through travel. Go ahead and listen to part 1 if you haven't quite yet. Now, in part 2, today's episode, we are diving into what dating is like as a digital nomad. It's going to be a fun conversation, so let's dive in. Dating in general is an experience. Dating as a digital nomad is a whole nother experience with more levels. And so a lot of people, a lot of women already have challenges dating. Now add into the mix the fact that you're not in a very stable position, any specific country, maybe for more than 3 months. So how do you feel that solo traveling while dating or digital nomading while dating, how does that compare to being just in one place? Like, what are the major pros and cons of each?
Okay, so I feel like my biggest pro, and I say this to people all the time, is you have more probability of finding someone when you're out there. So I tell people, like, especially, this is also a con. When dating, like, I have a lot of issues with men that aren't digital nomads, right? I meet them, I like them. But the fact that, like, I don't live where they live, to them, they're automatically, like, and I get it and I respect it. But what I tell them is, like, I'm a little bit confused. Are you expecting the love of your life to magically also be your neighbor? Like, do you
Yeah.
do you not realize like how lucky and fortunate that is that the one person that's meant to be for you is just like magically in your same city?
It's a rom-com. Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, that's nice. And for some people, it does happen. I get it, but you can't expect that. Good things don't come easy, right? So it's just like, why are you writing me off because I don't live in your city? Like, you might be missing out
Mm.
on something amazing because you're so close. Like, your mind is so close on the thought that they have to live right near you. And so that's one of the like biggest struggles I have with dating, is that people aren't open to that. But at the same time, for me, it's a pro because it's allowed me to like realize my person might not be in my hometown. My person might not be in my country. My person might be somewhere out in the world that I haven't even explored yet. And they're just waiting for me to find them, or they're going to come find me, or whatever it is the case. So I think that's like a blessing and a curse in a certain way, because it's
Yeah.
like the pro, I get to meet all different kinds of people in different phases of my life and this and that. I'm just a lot more open to what if I would have just stayed in my hometown, right? The con is a lot of people are still stuck in that mentality of expecting their person to be in the same area. So it's funny how it kind of just seesaws in between those.
Yeah. There's challenges for either type of
Yes.
lifestyle. And the added thing about being a digital nomad as well that I found is that, especially with dating, guys that are, let's just say, like local to that
Uh-huh.
country or city that they're in, they may not take it as seriously as you mentioned, because you're like, oh, you're leaving.
Yep.
It's, like, let's just date for a little bit while you're here, but like there's no real long-term attachment
Yep.
because you might be leaving. Or they're the other way where they're like expecting like, oh, okay, now you're like never gonna travel again, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, why can't we do a little bit of a balance between the two?
Yeah.
Where like, why don't you come with me? Is that an option?
Listen, it's so true. And it's crazy, like the titles or the assumptions that they put onto people. Because for me, I didn't notice it, or I didn't realize it until I started kind of noticing a pattern. And it happened most recently when I was in Portugal and I was dating this guy. And he was also some, quote unquote, like a digital nomad. He also wanted to travel to the same places I wanted to travel. Like, everything was clicking. And the thing is, like, when I went out on a date with him, I was not expecting any. I was just kind of like, why not? Because dating in Portugal was very difficult for me, because the men there seemed to be just very like, what's the word? They weren't very direct. They were just like, you kind of had to put in the
Mm.
work, right? So I was struggling. And when I matched with this guy, he was from the UK. And I just kind of went on the date to go for it. I was just not really thinking much of it. The date was probably the best date I've ever had. It was like everything that a girl wants in a date, to a T. It was great. And when we were talking, and he was like, oh, I also want to do this. Because after that, I was going to go to Orlando. And he's like, oh, I have family in Orlando. I wanted to go to Disney. He's like, oh, I think I could get free. And I was just like, what? And he wanted to travel.
Mm.
And we were talking about like coming to Colombia. And like everything was just like working, right? But there seemed to be a situation where it just felt like he was holding back as well. And I wasn't
Mm.
sure what it was. And then I came to realize that he just thought I was there for a good time. And that's it.
Mm.
That because I was a digital nomad, that I was not interested in anything serious, that I was just traveling and fucking around, basically. And to me, I was like, that's crazy, because I've never been that type of person. And the fact that I travel does not make me that type of person. But it made me realize
Mm.
a lot of men, they assume that we are like the men that do travel, that usually do kind of fuck around or have that like stigma of
Mm-hmm.
sleeping around. And I was like, and I kept trying to like reassure him, like, no, I'm not, like, I'm actually looking for something serious. I want something serious. I want to travel with someone. But he just kind of seemed to not be able to comprehend it, or I was incapable of really making him feel like that was the reality or that was the truth. And so that just kind of created problems where I feel like we weren't able to properly connect, and we came across issues because he
Mm.
just had this assumption about me. And then when I realized that that was the case, it made me kind of look back on like previous dates or previous guys I've dated. And I was like, I wonder if that also affected those relationships. If deep down they felt the same way, even though I never give them a reason to think that, if they just subconsciously assumed that they were just a good time to me. And so they never really tried.
Interesting.
And so
Yeah, and I wonder if a bit of that was projecting on his part, as you mentioned, where it's like, okay, well, because men do
yeah,
it, then they're like, oh, well, women are, they can have more options than men. So, of course, it's going to be more. And I think they don't take into account the fact that it's like emotionally, it's much different
yeah,
for us. Yes, I mean, I'm all for a good time, but also I think it's unfair to
Just
blanket
assume.
that. I mean, same with men too. Like, I'm sure not all of them are also doing the same
Exactly.
thing. So in that dating process, it's like really about getting to know that individual. And like, if you have a question, ask, and not just assume that's the case, maybe because of what the stereotypes are or what you personally feel like you might do if you were in that situation.
Exactly. And it's so tricky because it really does just come with a lot of stereotypes. Like I see guys on TikTok as well talking about how like, oh, if you go to her Instagram profile and you see flags in her story and this and this, like leave her alone, blah, 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 blah. Because they just make assumptions of who that person is. And like I'm not gonna lie, it makes me feel a little bit insecure sometimes. I'm like, damn, should I remove the flags from like my highlights? Should I
Oh
like, and
no.
then I'm like, this is crazy that they're even getting me to the point where I'm like thinking about this. I'm like, no, the right person will be comfortable with whatever the hell that I am, whatever the hell that I do. I'm not about to change or modify myself to be like, to meet men that, or make it easier for men, right? So, but I was thinking about that and I was like,
I think it's a good filter too. Now, yeah, you're filtering out all the men that aren't compatible for you. So, yeah,
exactly.
you might have less at the end, less hits or whatever
Yeah.
swipes we're talking about, but that also means that you're wasting less of your time
Yes.
because you're not having to deal with the people that aren't a good fit, but made it
Absolutely.
past that first filter
And I
anyway.
feel like it's so important that as women, we need to really check ourselves. And I've gotten to a point where I'm like, okay, if I'm getting a lot of likes, if I'm getting a lot of men approaching me, I'm doing something wrong. And we seem to
Mm.
assume that it's the other way around. Like if I'm getting a lot of men approaching me, I'm doing something right. But it's not. It's incorrect. For example, I heard this theory called like the sweatpants theory or something. So they say that like when you wear sweatpants and like a t-shirt and like a messy bun, more men approach you versus when you like look dolled up. And so as a woman, we're
Mm.
assuming like, oh, it's because they like a more natural girl. They like a more like, they like this homebody look or whatever. No, the truth is the reason that they're approaching you is because you look easier to approach. You look like you have
Mm.
your expectations lower because you're putting out this image. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with being out in sweatpants, whatnot. But we as women, we seem to assume that it's because of this reason. Turns out it's because of this. So women that are
Mhm.
dolled up, that are beautiful, that look expensive, you think they get approached all the time. They do not. Men do not approach them at all because they know she's out of their league. And so as women,
Mhm.
we become insecure, like, why aren't men approaching me? Am I doing something wrong? Is there something wrong with me? No, you're too good for them. The amount of men that you are deserving of are very, very, very limited. And the fact that men aren't approaching you is because they know they're smart enough to not waste their time.
Yeah, and this is why it's so important to be yourself authentically, like be the person that you are so that you don't have to be pretending that you're someone else. And, if you're going to get into a partnership, you don't want to have to pretend the whole rest of your life that you're a specific type of person when you're really a different
Exactly.
type, right? It's exhausting. And I think that, yeah, if you love to travel, you put that out there and say you love to travel. If you like to get dolled up or not get dolled up, you put that out there,
Yep.
and that's your normal state, because then it's just going to
Yep.
be less energy for you moving forward to keep up
And
whatever.
and the more authentic you are with yourself, the easier it is to find someone that will, I guess, click or match with who you are. So like again, like if I have my flags and my
Mhm.
traveling whatnot, all these men that don't want to do those things or don't like those things, they're gonna exit the room and they're gonna give space. Like
Yeah.
again, if we have our space,
Yeah.
we don't let go of the branches. We have our space completely, covered with men that aren't meant for us. We're not gonna have enough space for the men that are meant for us. And especially with dating, people tell me all the time, like, don't ask like hard questions at the beginning. Don't say this, don't say that. And I'm like, I don't think that's accurate. Like if I scare you off by talking about my expectations or what I want in my future, leave. Boo. Like go away. I'm trying to
Yeah.
scare you off. Like, but me personally, I'm someone that I would like to adopt in the future. It's something that's very important to me because I'm like, I want to be a mom. I love the idea and the concept of being a mother someday, but I'm terrified of giving birth. I'm still open to the idea of it, and it might just be more fear, like more just mental fear than what it would actually be. I do know it's a very difficult process, but I'm stuck on the idea of that. I would like to adopt. And me personally, I would like to at least have one kid naturally and the rest I would like to adopt. Just because I feel like there are a lot of kids in the
Mhm.
world and I would love to give just like, a home and give that
Mhm.
experience to a child of having a loving home and a mother. So I talk about those things on the first date and immediately guys will be like, oh no, I would never adopt. I could never love a a kid that's not my own blood and this and that. And I'm like, that's perfectly fine. I respect that. But now I know not to waste my time continuing to get to know you, because
Exactly.
this is something that like is so important to me. And now at least we're not going to be dating for a week, a month, and then I find out later. Like,
Yeah, and then you're not going to get attached, because once the
exactly.
hormones are changed and you get
You're screwed.
attached to this person, you're screwed. It's much harder to actually reiterate and continue to say, yes, no, this is what I want. This is what I
Yep.
want, once you're already like, oh, but I really like him, and oh, I know I'm going to lose him if,
Yeah.
it's that tangled web that, like, be upfront, put everything that you want out there on the table, and allow it to filter out the men that just aren't going to meet you there. They
Exactly.
deserve whatever version of life that they want to have as well. And so do you. And by taking up the space in each other's lives, you are not doing each other a favor.
And I tell my guy friends all the time, because I feel like men aren't very good at dating. They're just like, they let their impulses of like, oh, is she pretty? Is she this and that? And I tell them, listen, when you are texting a girl, before you even meet her for the first date, think of 3 questions that matter to you. 3 things that you absolutely need in a partner that you are not willing to like change. So for example, in my case, adoption is one of them, right? And I'm like, ask those 3. You don't have to interview the person. You don't have to like, because that is kind of annoying.
Yeah.
It's like, damn. But I'm like, just think of 3 questions that are important to you and just casually ask them and see what the response is. If they don't get those 3 right, it's just 3 questions. If they don't get them right, why are you taking her on a date? Because they'll be like, well, what if the energy is going to be okay, good. Yes, the energy might be amazing, but you are not on the same path. So you're just going to get infatuated. You're going to get your heart broken. You're going to get used, because she might talk to you, realize you want this, and be like, oh, I don't want that. I'm just going to get a meal off of him or whatever it is. And they get so mad. They be like, oh, women only use this for this. I'm like, because you're not taking the time to get to know them. And if you would have asked at least 3 little questions, you would have realized like, oh, we're actually not compatible. Let me reserve my energy for someone else. And I get that they play like the numbers game. But again, we go to the same thing. We're like, if you are spending your energy on something that's not meant for you, you're not giving space to spend that energy on what is meant for you. So I don't care what people say. First date, I'm going to ask 3 hard questions at least.
Yeah, and the 3 important things is values, vision, and lifestyle. Do you have the same things that you value in life? If I value adventure and freedom and you value stability and security, we might not be on the same path already, right?
Yes.
And then the vision, like, what is your vision for the future? Is that going to line up? Because if our vision for what our lives look like don't match, then we're going completely separate directions, and we're going to continue to resent each other and build that resentment over time because we weren't strong enough.
Yes.
Exactly. And then the last one is lifestyle. If you have a very different lifestyle than someone, there's a lot of compromise that have to happen. But do you really want to go into a new relationship already thinking, oh, I'm going to have to compromise something that is really important to me? Like, for example, if you don't drink and they're a heavy partier and drinker, like how is that going to match long term? Like there's certain things that you're going to be able to change. But like I know a lot of friends that, their vision for their lives were they were going to have babies and they're going to raise them in their hometown with their parents nearby. And then like that would require them moving. But then was that the same vision as well for their husband who lives on the other side of the world or the state, right? So then it's like, okay, well, now we're going to have to compromise. And how does that look like? And it works for some people, but it requires a lot of communication in order to make sure that resentment doesn't continue to build because neither person is getting what they want.
I feel like people had this concept that relationships require compromise. Yeah, that is like a natural part of relationship. And when I tell people, it's like, compromise in relationships should be things like, I want pizza, but you want burger. It shouldn't be, I want kids, you don't. That's not how it works. Like people really think
neither person's gonna be happy.
No, people really think that relationships require, or a healthy relationship means compromise. I'm like, no, a good relationship should not require heavy compromise. Compromise is for small things. Like, oh, you wanted to watch this movie, I wanted to watch the next one. That's what a healthy relationship with compromise is. These big things just mean that that's not the right person for you. Can you make it work? Yes, absolutely. It's like arranged marriages, right? If you really want something, you are always going to find a way to make it work. But then the question is, is that what you're looking for? Is that what you're willing to do? Are you willing to make a relationship work through compromise? Or are you looking for a relationship where you are happy and it comes naturally and it is what it is? So, and relationships take many shapes and forms. There's no right way to do it. An arranged marriage might be what is meant for you, or it might be a situation where you guys are just completely compatible 100%. You know, like there's different ways to go about it, but I feel like people want the one where it's like we're completely compatible, but then they want compromise. And I'm like, those two things they can't coexist. So it's like, I think people need to really begin to understand what a relationship should look like or what it shouldn't look like, what is required, isn't required, to really just like make it work. And I feel like in today's day and age, we are so confused about what a relationship is or how it works. And I actually want to get into concrete content creation and talk about those things, because I've lived with so many couples and I've seen so many things that I'm like, I really see where everyone is messing up. I see where I'm messing up, and like I'm not the perfect person with relationships and whatnot, but I do observe a lot and I see so many things that I'm like, even I need to fix on myself. And I'm like, I really want to have this conversation and just like, or this discussion about like what dating is and how it should be and how we're like really fucking it up so bad. Like we're really messing it up.
Yeah. And that's the reason why I have you on this podcast today, is because I really wanted to talk about the topic of relationships with you. And I think one of the things too that we as a generation are doing is we're also diving into our intergenerational wounds in regards to relationships, whereas I think prior generations weren't necessarily doing because of the stigma around mental health. But now we're seeing that the things that our parents did, our grandparents did, whatever it was that's part of our familial pattern, that's been passed over to us.
Yep.
And we may react, we may accept things in our lives, in our dating lives, because it was normalized when we were younger. And we don't know what healthy looks like because we never saw what healthy looks like. Same going back to, if you've never seen it and know what's possible for you, then how is it going to be something that you strive for or want in your life? So I think it's really important to have healthy expanders in the relationship area of seeing couples that communicate effectively,
Yep.
that have these conversations, that ask these hard questions up front, that do the
Yep.
work together, where compromise isn't the default, and
Yes.
that you can have an easy communicative relationship, where arguments aren't a thing. It's all
Yep.
about healthy resolution and communication ahead of time before it even gets to that resentment argument
Exactly.
period. So yeah, lots of work to do. And on top of that, so on top of being self-aware regarding your own relationship patterns, your family's relationship patterns, identifying what you need and want, adding in the instability of traveling full time.
Yeah.
No wonder digital nomads really.
Single as fuck.
Yes. But the thing is, it's like, okay, yes, as we mentioned, it's better to be single at the moment and dating rather than in a long-term stable relationship where it's not the right fit,
Yep.
but you're there because you don't have the self-worth maybe to know what's better, or you don't even know what
Yeah.
better looks like. So it's important to sometimes take the leap out of that situation if you already don't feel like your best version, that the best version of yourself. Like I was in a 10-year relationship from high school till I was 28, and it was hard. It was very hard for me to get out of because
Dang.
I didn't realize it, but I didn't realize at the moment that my self-worth was so far
Yeah.
gone that I thought he was the only one that would want me. And even though we wanted completely different things out of life, I thought like, okay, well, maybe we'll just. It was actually a long distance relationship too,
Oh
because
wow.
I had left our hometown to go to college 2 hours away, and then I started studying abroad, and then I started wanting to travel and do all these things and want a life, and he was still living at home. And it was always this like, I don't even care if you move to San Diego to see me, or to live with me. When are you just going to get out of your parents' place
Yeah.
and start living your own life? And it was always like oh, maybe in 2 years type of conversation.
Yeah.
10 years later, we were still in the same place, right? And I
Yeah.
accepted that. I accepted that as being like, oh, well, but he's my high school sweetheart. And really deep down, I was just scared
Yep.
who else would want me.
That's
That
so
was the
valid.
question that I kept pondering. And unfortunately in that relationship as well, I didn't realize until now was that simultaneously as we were in that relationship, he was also kind of doing things to put me down. So my self-worth was even lower.
Oh,
So we would say things like, oh, well, I'm the one that has real friends. You can't make friends. You're not very social. You're not very good
mhm.
at meeting new people. Things like that were like, "Oh,
Yeah,
I deserve a trophy," and my friends think I deserve a trophy because you're so much. Like, and that it was always that like, "Oh, I feel like I'm too much. Oh, I feel like I can't make
same.
friends." And then I think about that conversation now, those multiple conversations I had
Yeah,
now, that I'm literally building a business helping people make meaningful connections, that I'm this is me living my authentic version of myself. And for the longest time, I thought it was a bad thing. I thought
exactly.
that me expressing myself and being joyful and playful, I thought that was quote
Yep.
unquote too much. And if I had stayed in that relationship, I wouldn't be where I am now to living this life that I know I was meant to live.
Exactly. And I feel like a lot of times it's also like, which is something that I've been struggling with, where it's like, am I asking for too much? Should I lower my expectations? Because I dated one guy, he was great. He was financially stable, he was nice to me, like everything that like you would like the bare minimum of you would expect in a partner. It didn't give
Mhm.
me like I didn't feel like wow, like this is my person, but I was content. And then I started telling myself like maybe I'm asking for too much. Maybe this is what I should be striving for. Maybe I shouldn't be like expecting all these things that I want in a partner, and instead I should be more realistic. Am I fantasizing? Am I being is like me being a hopeless romantic ruining the opportunity? I'm like, what if I miss out on this opportunity because I was looking for something more, and then I end up with nothing, and I start overthinking, wondering, and worrying, and it almost got me to a point where I really just settled down with this person and kind of gave up what I did want. Thankfully, I snapped out of it, and I've come to realize like
Yeah.
between like settling down with something that doesn't really fulfill me and being just single, I'd rather just be single. And I think we've been taught that like being single is a bad thing, that like we failed and this and that. But there's studies that show like right now women who are single are happier. And it's not, and I don't think of it
Yeah.
in a way of like men are bad or this and that, but rather it's just these women are remaining single because they haven't found who they're meant to be with. And instead of being with someone that they're not meant to be with and being unhappy, they're now consciously making the decision and realizing, oh, actually, being single is an option that we were never taught. We were always taught like you have to be with a man, you have to find a husband, a provider, blah, blah, blah. And now we're coming to the realization like, actually, we don't. We can be our own providers. We can be our own, we can care for ourselves. We don't need a man. Instead, we should find a man that we want. And I say this to men all the time, and they're like, oh my God, don't say that. And I'm like, I'm going to tell men all the time, I don't need you. And you shouldn't want me to need you. You should want me to want you. Why? Because when you need a man, the moment that he stops being able to provide what it is that you need, he's no longer useful to you. So let's say you need a man for economical reasons, right? If for whatever reason tomorrow you win the lottery and like you no longer need him economically, guess what? He's gone. So I tell men like you shouldn't look for a woman that
Mhm.
needs you. Yes, the feeling of like someone needing you is nice, but it's not healthy. Like you need to find someone that just wants you. They're actively making the decision of having you in their life because of who you are, point blank period. Like it's not anything that you're necessarily giving you or that they can't have, or you like it's not that they can exist without you, and they're making the choice every day to have you. To me, that's love. Needing someone, it can come off across like love, but
I say I hate the statement of like, oh, that's my other half. That person completes me. It's like,
yes,
girl, you should be completed on your own. Be
yes,
whole in you by yourself. Have two whole partners coming
exactly.
together to elevate each other as opposed to like completing each other and
Exactly.
feeling not, completely whole unless you're with that person.
Exactly. That person needs to complement you, not complete you. They need to
Hmm.
improve or add on to who you already are as a person, but they shouldn't complete you because you should be able to exist without, but you should want to be around them. So,
Yeah, and that's the other thing too is as I have allowed myself to do the work to heal and to realize my worth,
mhm,
I have gained so much more confidence in the value that I provide. And I'm also not willing to like set myself back because of a
exactly.
man. And I say that just like a couple of examples. So, for example, I take myself traveling. Like I have this beautiful lifestyle that I've built where I can travel all over the world and take myself out to nice dinners, to take myself out to have amazing experiences. And so, why would I then then want to lower that standard of living for myself
Yeah.
just to be with someone. Like if I'm taking myself out to a Michelin starred restaurant, why, and you want to take me to Applebee's, but I'm making the reservation because you don't make reservations. What? I don't understand why I would get into that situation. But old me, the me in that relationship that I was in, that was what I was doing. I was
Yep.
going to Applebee's because that's where he wanted to go. Didn't want to make the reservation for it. And I knew, oh, well, but like we won't even have dinner at all if I don't make
Yeah.
something. And he only wants to go to this place. So
Yeah.
fine, I'll make a reservation to Applebee's even if I don't want to go. And then once I dropped that, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm taking myself out to this nice Michelin starred meal in Buenos Aires or in like Paris, and it's amazing. And I love myself. I love my energy. And I'd rather this 100 times any day
Listen.
than where I was sitting on my phone with a partner that I was with for 10 years where we weren't even talking because like what else do we talk about at this point, right? So I think that's just another reminder for me and then for anyone listening out there
Yeah.
that like give yourself the things that you want, whatever it is that your vision is for your life, your lifestyle,
Yep.
like give yourself that because then you are able to recognize what it's like having the things that you want in your life. And when
Yeah.
something comes along and tries to give you anything less than that, then you're going to say, no, I'm good. Like, if you're not contributing to this experience and adding it and elevating it, then like, why are we getting into this?
Absolutely.
The other tricky thing that I don't want to get back into is the falling in love with someone's potential.
Oh yeah, no,
They have
absolutely
to
not.
actively be taking actions towards it, right? So if they are actively like working towards that goal and you can see it and they have a very set
Yep.
path, then, maybe the timing is just not right with
Yep.
us. Then you focus on that goal
Exactly.
and you work towards it. And then let's circle back around in the future.
Exactly.
But I'm no longer going to be there
Yep.
feeding into someone's potential because you don't know if that's ever going to be the person
Yep.
that is the version that you are looking for, which is why in that case, it's like, okay, if we're very different stages of our lives right now, then
Yep.
like you do you focus on you. Like if it works, it works. But like for me, this is where I need someone at my level or have already kind of gotten to where they wanted to be. And their
Exactly.
focus right now is their relationship area.
Exactly.
That's where I'm looking for because I don't want someone to feed me these, but like this is what I want in
Potentials,
the
maybes.
future.
Yeah.
And I don't see any actual concrete movement. So bringing it back into travel and navigating dating in this space, how do you find these competent men then, right? Like, okay, so as you're traveling around the world and you go to a new city, so the first step is what methods, what strategies are you doing to put yourself out there? And then two, how are you addressing and filtering for what it is that you're wanting and needing?
So a big part of it is asking the hard questions first. So, and in this case, it's not even hard questions. It's just questions that I use to filter. So when I tend to date with dating apps, I don't tend to date in person. I've kind of decided to change that a little bit to see if maybe that'll give me different results.
Mm.
But one of the first things I would do is ask these men, like, oh, do you travel? How often do you travel? Are you a digital nomad? Are you looking to be a digital nomad? Are you looking to work remotely? All these questions, because a lot of them are that I've met are maybe here for vacation. They work, but they only work like at an
Mm.
office job. They have no intention of being remote or like starting their own business or being entrepreneurs. So that helps me filter because I'm like, well, what's the point of me getting to know you or dating you if your life goal is to just continue this office job, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with it if that's your goal. Or for example, like if you want to be, let's say, like a
It's
doctor,
just not
right? If
aligned.
you want to be a doctor, but that requires you to stay in your city, that doesn't align with what I'm looking for in this moment. Who knows? Maybe in the future, I want to settle down and marry a doctor or whatever. But right now, in this moment, I'm looking for a partner that is capable and able of traveling with me. And so I think the biggest thing
Mm-hmm.
is, again, sitting down, realizing what it is you're looking for or what you need in a person to be compatible with your lifestyle, and then asking those questions and letting them filter themselves out. And being hard with yourself, because a lot of times we'll be like, okay, he doesn't work remotely, but he's so cute, but this, but that
Yeah.
maybe I can compromise, blah, blah, blah. And then we get caught up and then we struggle and we suffer. So I think the biggest thing is to like realize, like, if you're compromising from the beginning, it's not going to work out.
Yeah. One of the things that I have switched my strategy to recently. So I was a big like, let's go on a dating apps, like 5 dates a week. Let's just go, 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 meet all the people. It's exhausting doing it that
Yeah.
way. Fun, but exhausting.
Yep.
And then I realized with doing that you automatically get into this area where you might get attached too quickly to a person. You get attached to their potential or this version of them that you want them to be without actually getting to know them. Because
Yep.
immediately when you are going on a date, you already have that feeling of like, oh, this could be something. And it's a fun feeling, but it's also one that can get you down into a slippery slope.
Yep.
So what I've been doing lately is I said, okay, you know what? I just need to put myself out there to make male friendships,
Yes. I
just male
remember we talked
friendships.
about that.
Because what's important, yeah, we talked about this because I think for me specifically, what I wasn't getting was just healthy, straight male friendships in my life to show me what
Yep.
healthy male straight friendships even were, right? To know what safe looks like
Yep.
in that term too, because I think for me, I just have this level of like feeling unsafe that
Yes.
I recognize. And so I'm
Yes.
like, okay, so let me, instead of putting myself out there for dating, I'm going to put myself out there in these like digital nomad meetups and
Yes.
online spaces and in-person spaces to make friends. Because what will happen in that case then is like once I know that I at least like you as a person, as a potential friend,
Yeah.
we are at baseline already. Like
Yep.
we have a foundation. And then from there, if you are interested in me, then you show me.
Yep.
Then there's mutual buildup in between where it's like you have to put in the effort to go from friend to more. But for me, everyone comes in as a potential friend. And then that way you can also, not only get the baseline connection with them,
Mhm.
but also see them actively and consistently show up.
Yep.
And I think that's the hard thing too, is like people will show up in the dating world to impress you only for a little time, but then you see their true colors after that, and
Absolutely.
then you're like, oh well, where was the person that I met a little bit ago? But if you come at it from the opposite spectrum of like, let me just be friends with you, let me see who you are without dating involved,
Mhm.
and then let's see if you show up consistently enough for me to actually elevate you into that romantic category, then I can see who you really are and accept you for who you really are without me getting attached to this
Yep.
version of who I want you to
And
be.
I also think it's important, like, I feel like people have this mentality or this concept of where, like, when they break up with someone or it doesn't work romantically, it's like you have to cut them out of your life and remove them and this and that, right? There, to me, there are circumstances or situations where it is necessary when the person does you dirty or they mistreat you. But sometimes that usually happens because you allow them to get to that point, right? But I've noticed that with dating, honestly, like, these dating apps have given me so many male friends. It hasn't worked out necessarily with, like, I haven't found a husband yet, but I am so grateful for the male friends that it has provided. Like, with some guys, it turned into us dating and then it not working out and then just friendship. Some where, like, it just turned out to be only friendship because I didn't feel weird, this and that. But some of the best guys I've met is through that. And it's also been like incredibly helpful because I get to see things from a different perspective. Because yes, I love my girlfriends and I love asking for them for advice and perspectives and this and that. But really being able to go to my male friends and be like, hey, this and this and this happened. Can I get some insight? They give you this perspective that as a woman you just don't comprehend or you never even thought about. And I was like, wow, I never thought about it like that. And it also just allows me to kind of understand the male brain a little bit more. And at the end of the day, like, it's important to have the balance of masculine versus feminine and just being able to enjoy their masculine presence and their energy is also like extremely helpful and beneficial and healthy for me. And it also kind of helps me realize that good men do exist. We might not be compatible in like a romantic sense, but it helps me with the reassurance of like, hey, there are men out there who are amazing, who will treat you with respect, who are kind. And when I am sometimes even going through moments where like I'm sad because a man ain't there for me romantically, my guy friends, they step up for me and I'm so grateful for them. Like today I was thinking about how like I've been so busy that I didn't even realize like today was Valentine's Day and I don't have any plans, and I'm like, damn, I'm feeling like I'm kind of in my feelings about it, right? And one of my friends, he just messages me and he's like, can I send you dinner money? And I
Oh.
was like it meant so much to me because I was just like, he doesn't have to do this. We're not romantically involved. We did date a little bit in the past, but like we're just completely friendly now. There's no sense of like flirting and this and that. And the fact that he saw me, he probably knew that, you know, I was kind of sad about not having, and he went and did something just out of complete friendship. He's getting nothing from it. That also helps because it's like you don't lower your self-esteem to get that from someone else because you can get it from a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Like now you don't feel like you have to go
Yeah.
do something in exchange. You don't have to provide a man with something in exchange for receiving that. So it's like, wow, I can really
Mm-hmm.
receive these things by just being me and just providing my energy and my
Yeah.
friendship. And that's what's so important because I feel like sometimes as women, we're also taught like unless we give something, we can't get something in return, right?
With the traveling is a great way to grow personally, to see the
Yes.
world, to get connected with yourself, with other people, with other cultures. But it's not a solution to
Yes.
life.
No.
It's a catalyst for that change, but it is
Yes.
not a solution. And so that's why I focus on travel as a form of, as a way to transform your life, and
Absolutely.
rather than as a way to escape.
Yes.
Because in some cases, yeah, you're going to want to have different priorities in different seasons of your life. And travel burnout is real.
Yeah.
Travel burnout usually happens when you're like, go, 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 distracting yourself with it, and then not really getting back into that connection with yourself and what it is that you need in that moment. And that's when it's good to reassess, to have a period of reassessment of like,
Yeah.
okay, like how long do I travel? How frequently do I travel? Where do I go? And how is it contributing to my goals in life right now? And if at this point it is distracting from what it is that I want, then maybe I stabilize in a different way. If it's adding, then let's go for it, right? So there's different, I like to reevaluate on a quarterly
Yeah.
basis, which is why I tend to travel and live somewhere every 3 to 6 months,
Yeah.
because I want the environment that I'm in to support the goals that I have for that quarter.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
when I was in Bali, my goal was to really to heal
Mhm.
and to get healthy again. So the
Yeah.
fact that there were endless amounts of vegan restaurants and like options for spirituality and
Mhm.
healing, then that was a perfect environment for me. And if I wanted to be more social, maybe I would go back to Buenos Aires because that's a very social place for me. If I want to buckle down and just get work done, apparently that's the Philippines for me, right? So each place is going to, again, it's not necessarily like, yes, we all want to travel and see the world, but when you're doing this full time,
Yep.
it has to be something that you have to align to the
Yes.
priorities that you
Absolutely.
have in the other areas of your
And
life.
it's interesting because, like I said, like I don't know what path I want to take with my life and stuff, right? So traveling, like you said, it's been kind of a distraction. I'm not necessarily escaping, but I'm just like existing, right? And enjoying the traveling.
Mm-hmm.
So through it, I've learned so many things. I've like had a lot of experiences. I've gotten to know myself so much better and this and that. And now it's allowing me to get to a point where I'm like, okay, now traveling is starting to feel like I am like distracting myself. Like before I was like learning and trying to find
Yeah.
myself, and now I'm like, okay, I found myself. Now I feel like if I keep doing this, I'm kind of distracted. So that's why I'm like, now I need to settle down because now I know what I want to do. I have these goals. I know what I need to do to accomplish them. Let's sit down and focus. And so traveling
Mm-hmm.
definitely helped me to figure out or try to understand what it is that I want, test out different things, realize, oh, I do like this, no, I don't like that. And now I'm at a point where I finally feel like, okay, I'm ready to settle down a little bit. And so now that's where I'm at right now, where I'm like, okay, let me put my feet on the ground, let me grind. And
Mm-hmm.
it's I think everyone's journey is very, very different. I feel like a lot of time people try to follow a path that was successful for someone else, but they don't realize that no path is the correct path. Everyone has their own path and their own timelines and their own things. So like I might have friends that got married at 21 and they lived like a great life, and now they're traveling together with their partner, and I might be like, damn, I should have done it that way. I should have done this. I should have done that. But I have to realize that that was their path. And if I would have taken their path, I might be unhappy right now. If they would have taken my path, they might have been unhappy. So we have to understand that it's not a race. There's no perfect way to do it. And I think a lot about like celebrities, right? That like at the age of 40, they finally accomplished what it is that they wanted. And we see like, oh, they accomplished it, but we don't realize it took them a while. Or even like, I think about this so much. Like I see older people who are like on TikTok and they blew up and they have this account and that's their thing now. And like maybe in the past they were so worried and they didn't realize that the reason they haven't accomplished what they wanted to accomplish or things didn't work out is because it doesn't even exist yet. TikTok wasn't even a thing. How are they supposed to be successful if what they were supposed to be successful at wasn't even a thing yet? So I try to remind myself that all the time where I'm feeling like, oh, I'm not accomplishing what I need. Maybe when I'm 50, I become something of that doesn't even exist nowadays. And that's what was meant for me all along. And this whole time I've been stressed about my present and this and this and that. Turns out that I was just supposed to learn during this process so that when whatever needs to be mine does come along, it just happens, right? So I'm like, I think about that all the time. I'm like, I'm so focused on like, I'm not accomplishing right now. I'm not figuring it out right now. Maybe the reason I haven't figured it out right now is because it doesn't exist yet. And it's not my time right now. And maybe other people, they do have it right now, whatever it is. So I try to remind people like, it might just not be your time. You're not running out of time. You didn't mess up. You didn't like not figure it out. It's just, it might not be your moment. But what you can do wrong is to focus on. If you're focusing on that and you're belittling yourself, that's what you're doing wrong. But you can't, again, what's meant for you is meant for you. There's nothing that you can do to change that or to mess it up. You can't mess up your destiny unless you start focusing on like negative things. So I have like this constant reminder. And even with my mom, I look at her and I'm like, yo, she had a whole life before you. She gave birth to you. She has lived the same life she's lived your life, let's say, like the years you've been alive. And she still has so much to live. And you're worried that you're running out of time. Like I use my mom as like a way of like, she still has so much going on for her. Why do I think I don't have time? And like I try to remind myself.
And I think a lot of that is just societal pressures
Yes,
of what women's lives are like once
absolutely.
they pass the age of 30, right? And they think
Yes.
like, oh, you just disappear into ashes at that point. And I love that now. It's like, no, we're still around and we're doing more and better things at this age than our 20-year-old versions could have ever imagined. And 40-year-old versions, 50-year-old versions, 60 plus anything, right? Like if you are still alive, you are doing great things and you can still live an amazing and beautiful experience. And even,
Absolutely.
as you mentioned, things that you might not even realize were meant for you, that become yours in the future.
Because to us, when we get to our 30s, society makes us feel like our life is ending, right? But when we when we think about, oh, we were just born, to us, our life is just beginning. So every time I'm feeling like, oh, I'm running out of time, I just think about my mom. I think about her and I'm like, she
Yeah.
still has so much to experience and I'm worried. And she's lived
Yeah.
already. So
Yeah, and the other thing too I think about in regards to my mom is that like I don't necessarily want to have to go through the struggles that she went through in terms of relationships and
yeah,
taking the lessons that were hard learned for them
yep,
and making sure that we learn from them in our lives, because we know what that looks like and it
absolutely.
might not necessarily be the path that you want to have for yourself. And so it's like, okay, well, do I want to do that work again in this life? My mom already showed me what that path looks like.
Yeah,
Do I really want to learn that lesson in myself?
exactly.
So I think that that's also important, is that it's those familial patterns and recognizing them, appreciating the path that your parents went through, but then also recognizing the things that you can avoid in your life, that don't necessarily fit. Thank you so much for this chat. I think that this was like I think dating in general isn't, we went into this thinking, we chat in terms of dating and traveling and the differences, but really at the end of the day, it's all the same thing, right? The only difference is there might just be some additional considerations that you have to make because of the travel lifestyle. But at the end of the day, you have the same challenges. You have to have the same considerations in terms of standards, what you're looking for, what aligns with you, your lifestyle, your vision, your values. And yeah, I think there's so much that goes into it. A lot of it is self-worth related, personal growth related, and trust, right? As bringing this back to the beginning, trusting that the universe is working in your
Yep.
favor and continuing to have that hope and trust that you yourself just don't have the perspective yet that you need to have to even ask for the
Yep.
things that are meant for you.
Absolutely.
Oh, this has been such a great conversation. Do you have any last bit before we do our wrap up questions? Do you have any last bit of advice in regards to the dating to seal off the topic?
I wish I could give better advice, being like, oh, I met my man and I did this and this and this. I can't. I can't offer that advice. So I guess the advice I can offer is the things that I've learned affect me negatively. And so, like we've talked about during this time, it's making sure I know what it is that I want, who I am, what I'm looking for, focusing on myself and my goals, because I feel like we focus with dating a lot on like, how do I find this person? How do I get this? How do I get that? When in reality, we can't even get to that point if we don't accomplish everything that comes before. And some people get lucky. Some people get it, they get it before they even get to that point. But it's not the case for everyone. And again, like there's no perfect way to travel. There's no perfect way to be a digital nomad. There's no perfect way to date. And I think my advice is you have to really just listen. You have to listen. You have to open yourself to trusting yourself and trusting the world. Because again, like you could have the universe, the world can be whatever you want it to be. It can be your God. It can be your religion. It can be your life experience. It can be whatever you want it to be. But you have to put yourself in a situation where you can listen, where you're open to listening and you're open-minded to possibly realizing that it's not things you're going to enjoy. It's not things that are going to be easy. But if you don't do it, you're not going to get what you want out of it. So I guess my biggest takeaway is that it's so important to just really listen to ourselves. And that's the best way to get what you want out of life. Just a lot of self-reflection, a lot of self-understanding. And whether you have to accomplish that by traveling or by not traveling, that's a journey you have to figure out on your own. Nobody can give you those answers. But the best way to find out those answers is by trying different things. If you keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, I have bad news for you. So again, you can't hold on to the old things and expect new things. So if you want something different, do something different. I think that would be my biggest takeaway.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. And as we shift into our last quick fire questions, I like to focus on connection, transformation, play. And so my first question is on connection. How did you meet your most meaningful connections as you've been traveling? And do you have any tips for others looking to make and nurture meaningful connections on the go? And this is friendships, relationships, in general
So I
connections.
think one of the beautiful things about traveling is that a lot of us do it on our own and we're also looking for other people. So for example, when you live somewhere stable, most people already have their friends group, right? So it's hard to meet new people because they're already kind of settled. When you travel, there are people who are open to making new friends or want to make new friends. So it's just easier to accomplish. And in my case, I use Facebook groups, I use WhatsApp groups, I even use apps like Bumble BFF. Even just like, I feel like when you're in that energy, you will find other people who have that same energy and you will attract each other. So I think honestly traveling has made it the easiest to make friends, and the connections that I've made are so beautiful. And sometimes I struggle because I'm like, if I were to get married, like I don't have bridesmaids, I don't have these like long-term relationship with these people. Like I've known each other for years, but the connection can be so deep, so fast. And it's just like you get to a point where like you can just have a conversation and you don't need all these past experience to really connect with the person. Like even our experiences of us meeting, it wasn't that long. We maybe knew each other, let's say like 6 months. or less than 6 months, because I was only in Mexico for 6 months. And yet I feel like we've had such amazing conversations, such in-depth stuff. We've had experiences together that I haven't had with friends that I've known for years. I don't even know who those people are. So it's crazy how like, and also just like us being in these like similar experiences and figuring ourselves out, like it just makes that connection so much more deeper, where you feel comfortable like sharing these experiences with someone, talking about these things. Like it's just like, I understand you, you understand me, and it's so beautiful. And I feel like people are just like, so like they get a little bit scared about it, but listen, when you put yourself out there, it's crazy. And I think the most important thing is do things that you love. If you want to travel, while you travel to these places that you want to do these activities that you want to do or been wanting to, you're going to meet like-minded people, because they also want to go to these places you want to go. They also want to do these activities that you want
Yes.
to do. Always put yourself where you want to be, and you are going to find the right people for you. And
Amen.
I was thinking about it because, like we talked about, I created a WhatsApp group here in Colombia because
Yes.
I couldn't seem to find the people that I was looking for. And so I was like, okay, if I can't go to them, I'm going to bring them to me. So I created this group with a specific idea in mind. And it's funny because right before I left Colombia this last time, it was in end of July. It was going to be my birthday in August. And I remember I organized this potluck, and they come out with this cake, right? And they start singing, and I'm like, oh, whose birthday is it? I'm like, oh, I didn't know it was someone's birthday, until like I realized it was for me. And I was
Aw.
talking to them, like I was kind of stressed out because I knew rent. I was going to Portugal. I knew rent over there was going to be expensive. I was a little stressed out. I was accustomed to like prices in Colombia. These people got together and like collected money, and they gifted me money. And it
Wow.
wasn't about the money. It was about the fact that like they thought of me and they paid attention to what I was kind of like struggling with or dealing with. I cried. I was just like so emotional because I've never had like a group of friends, and this was the first time I was like, damn, like this is it. And I made this for myself by accident. It was by accident.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm like, this is what I want. I'm gonna put it out into the world. I'm gonna do the things that I want. And I got that in return, and I was like, oh my God. And like I'm so emotional about it now. But yeah, it's crazy. So just put yourself out there, do the things that like you want, create what you want. Don't look for it. Don't look for things that already exist because it's hard. Make them, because a lot of people might be in the same situation where they want what you want, but it doesn't exist. And so like have the courage of like creating that for yourself, and you're gonna find people. They're gonna come to you. It's just like once you experience it, it's so beautiful. It's so freaking. And I would have never had that if I would have just stayed, or if I wouldn't have taken like that risk. And I'm like, wow. I remember that day so vividly. Like I went home and I was just like, oh my God, just bawling, but like just happy
That's
tears.
that's amazing.
Yes, and
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like you sharing your beautiful energy with people and creating the space for people to get together. So your group is called Melanated People of Medellin,
yes,
and I've been to some events fortunately while I was there, and I loved it. And it's a beautiful community, especially in Medellin, and I love that diversity is key
yes,
to the community because that is something as a traveler is lacking,
yeah,
unfortunately, in a lot of the spaces as digital nomads.
yes,
And there are important factors that are unique to melanated people
yes.
that it's a nice safe container that you have created in Colombia. So I acknowledge you and thank you for creating that community.
Appreciate that. And it's been a journey in itself, because like I say it all the time, like people look at me and they might not consider me melanated because of my skin tone, but I tell people like it's really about experiences. And like I was saying at the beginning, for me as a Latina, at the end of the day, even if I look a certain way, my experiences are something different than what others experience. The struggles, the hoops I have to jump through, those are all part of my experiences as what I consider myself a melanated person, right? And so I also wanted to create this space as a safe space where it's like I don't want to put specific boxes, because I feel like everyone has a specific box of what being melanated is, and they link it so much to your skin tone. And I'm like, it's really not that. It's the experiences that you go through, the similarities. Because I remember that like I have white friends, Caucasian friends, whatever you want to call them, and they're amazing, and I love them to bits and pieces. But there was always a slight disconnect in certain things that I would talk about, certain experiences, because they couldn't put themselves in my shoes. And I remember when I went to PDC, that's where I got the melanated thing from, because I remember there was a melanated women's group, and one of my friends was the one who told me to join. She's a Black woman, and I'm like, well, if she thinks it's okay for me to join, it should be fine for me to join. So I joined, and the energy was just different, and I felt kind of like, for the first time, I felt seen and I felt understood, and I was like, wow. But it was funny because one day I shared like a picture of myself doing something with lashes, and they were like, it kind of sparked this whole conversation, like, are there people in this group that shouldn't be here? And it's because of my skin tone, right? And so we kind of talked about like what being melanated was, this and that, and I was like, listen, I don't want to put myself in a space where I'm not supposed to be in, but I do feel in my heart that this feels like the right space for me. I feel at home, I feel understood, I feel respected. And I was like, if I don't, I'm still trying to understand myself, I'm still trying to figure out myself. And that's also like a struggle. I feel like we let people put titles on us, put us in boxes, and like put these expectations on us. And I understand that it all comes from like past experiences. So I know like maybe another girl who looks like me hasn't had the same experience that I have. So they might say things that come from a place of ignorance. And again, I'm sure I say stuff that's ignorant here and there as well. But it's just like, we really need to see people for who they are and their individual experiences, because I've met other Latinas from Costa Rica that I can't relate to them. I feel like they haven't had the experiences that I've had growing up, especially that I grew up as an illegal immigrant in the United States. And when I was young, I was really tan. I had long black straight hair. People would always just call me a Mexican, just assume I was a Mexican. And so I looked different than there, because Amazon didn't let me be out in the sun, and I got pale as fuck. But to me, it was just like, I was able, and thanks to traveling, I was able to find, let's say, a word that I would have never in the past maybe been like, oh yeah, that I fall under that category. And so I was kind of just like existing in the world. I didn't know where I belonged. And when I found that space, it was still confusing, because I felt like what I saw wasn't what I am. And I was like, huh. But give like these women that allowed the space for me to belong to, and had the patience and the courage to give me the opportunity to like really be there. And they really made a difference in my life, where it allowed me to understand this other part of me that I was like, damn. And thanks to them, I'm so grateful to these women. I was able to understand myself better, and I was able to put myself in a situation and meet people that allowed this growth. They helped. The growth that I had in PDC was just crazy emotionally. And it was thanks to these women, and thanks to this group, and thanks to the term melanated. And it's so crazy. Like it can be such like a controversial topic. So it can also be tricky. I might say things that come off weird, but I'm so grateful for kind of like the journey within that as well, and the kind of, let's say, like obstacles I went through as well, where I kind of had to prove myself. Part of proving myself allowed me to get to know myself and understand myself, and really see what my experiences were and who I consider myself as a person. And I think traveling and making friends of different places and different thoughts and different ideologies will really force you to get to know yourself better. And therefore will also allow you to find what you need in a lot like easier. It's going to be tough at first, but then it'll like click for you. You'll be like, oh, and you'll get to a point where you can read energies and be like, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I want. You meet someone and immediately you can be like, that's the person. I want that to be my friend.
Yeah, it's so wild that you bring that up, because that's exactly how I felt, where like before I was like struggling, like, why can't I find my people? Like, why is this so hard? And then you learn so much about you tune back in, you get connected to yourself. And then now you get to a point where not only can you recognize it immediately in other people, but you don't even have to say a word. You just show up somewhere and your energy is
Yep.
calling people to you. And
Yes.
like I've gone to multiple events that are like 100 plus people. And I like to focus on a couple people when I am at an event, because I'd rather go deeper than wider.
Yeah.
And so I will focus on the people that I am talking with and go deep in that conversation if it's enjoyable. And it's crazy that like I will have people introducing themselves to me, or even after the event, seeing me or connecting with me on social media. And they're like, hey, I didn't get to talk to you, but I really like your energy. And I'm like, I didn't, oh, nice. And no, we were at the same event, but I'm like glad we're connected,
Literally,
and
it's
that's
crazy.
that happens when you do the work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting because you come to realize that like you can be so different and yet so similar. Like if you compare me to you, we're very different people. We have very different experiences. We have similar experiences in some areas, but like if let's say if you were to make a profile of who you are and I were to make a profile of who I am, we're so different. And yet there was a connection and we overlap and we provide something for each other that we might not have even like realized. And that's the beauty of it, and that's what I love about it, because it's like there are friendships that I've made that I'm like, never in a million years would I think that this person and I would be friends or that we could offer each other anything. And yet like there are experiences in my life, like something like astrology. I don't know shit about astrology, but you brought that into my life, and like that helped me make and understand certain connections. And like who would have thought, like who would have thought, like what. And that's just a crazy thing, and it's just energies. And I think sometimes we focus so much on like similarities and stuff when really we need to work on our energy and really understand ourselves so that we can attract similar energies and really just continue to connect and bless each other, because that's what I think it is. At the end of the day, we're just blessing each other in different shapes and forms, and I think that's so freaking beautiful and so like weird, and it feels like this spiritual mumbo jumbo, but until you experience it, you're like, oh, that's crazy. Like, wow, this is a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is wild. It is. Going into, we talk a lot about self reflection, personal growth, and you have had one hell of a journey yourself. What is one question that you wish you could have asked your younger self earlier at the start of your journey?
Oh, that's a tricky one. Because you know what it is? I've come to this place mostly where I believe everything happens the way it happens and exists the way it has to exist. And I don't want to change anything that I've experienced. Like, not that I don't have regrets, but I feel like anything that I would change would modify who I am now and where I'm at now. And who knows, maybe it could have made me better, but it could have also made me worse. So I think maybe I would just ask my younger self, like, what she thinks her future is going to look like or what she expects her future to be, just so I can kind of giggle at myself and be like, ha, you thought this is really what you thought you were going to be.
Yeah.
Surprise. This is a reality. Like, I know at some point when I was little, I wanted to be like a veterinarian because I loved animals. And I'm like, girl, you could not be a vet. You could not like cut open an animal and like do stuff. Like, you're so squeamish. And I'm like, never in my mind. But or for example, like when I was since the age of 12, I had gotten into graphic design, right? But what was I gonna think that thanks to graphic design, I got to a point where I was able to travel remotely and go to different, like that, I never would have made that association, like, and so I think it would be so cool to just ask my younger self, like, what do you think your future is gonna look like? And just see how like vastly different it ended up
Yeah.
being.
That answer is. I also like one of the questions you mentioned earlier of, at this point in your life, are you happy with what was that question?
If you died tomorrow, are you happy with the life you've lived?
Yeah, and I think that that's an important question to ponder over.
Yeah.
Maybe you already asked it of yourself in your
Yeah.
past, but I like to ask this question so that I can compile a list for the listeners to be able to reflect on, so that if they are going through their own "what's the point" moment,
Mm-hmm.
then they can go through a list of questions that worked for other women who were in that same period of their lives, and start to work their way through
Yeah,
it. So
absolutely.
I think that that's really powerful of a question. Ooh, okay, we're getting down to the wire. So what one last tip would you give women who are considering traveling solo for the first time, but they're a bit hesitant? What advice would you share with
I
them?
would say resources. All the resources you can find, investigate, look for information, put yourself in groups. Just, I think one of the things that has really helped me a lot with solo traveling is just being or putting myself in spaces where other people are also doing the same. And I think in the past it was a lot harder because those type of things, traveling wasn't common. Solo traveling was not common, especially as a woman. So those type of resources weren't available to us. So I really commend women, older women who solo travel, because how the hell? But in today's day and age, there are so many resources. Take advantage of them. Make your life easier. I've met so many girls that have they've struggled or they've gone through things because they didn't take the time to ask question. They didn't take the time to investigate. And I think it is important to like live in the moment to a certain degree. But if you're scared, give yourself security by giving yourself information. The more you know, the less you're unaware, the less scary it is. The more that you know, the more
Yes,
secure you're
exactly.
going to feel in your decisions. So, like your Instagram, your page, your project, that is such a beautiful way to help these women that are scared. Find women like Jeline and go like listen to her. Listen to her, listen to the resources, take advantage of everything that she's out here doing the Lord's work. She's putting the resources out there for you. She went through it, and instead of just being like, okay, here's all this information for myself, she's like, boom, here's this information for you from all the stuff I went through and learned, and here's information other women went through. Here, like, exploit your resources. And I think that would be my biggest advice. Other people are doing it, go ask some questions. We're happy to help. We're happy to share our experiences. Don't be scared. I feel like people are so scared to like be a bother. I'm like, no, I think as travelers, we want other people to take up space. Don't feel like you can't take up all the damn space. But resources, listen, resources are the biggest help nowadays, and they're so motivating. Resource and community is part of that resource. Finding that community, trying out different communities, just see what's out there and take advantage of it as much as you can.
Yes, there's going to be someone else who has asked the same question as you in the past, and someone who is willing to provide that answer. So
Exactly.
definitely take care and dive into those resources is a great tip. Speaking of which, I actually offer confidence coaching for solo travel
Boom.
specifically, so that is also an option.
Just saying. I mean, if y'all at this point y'all can't complain. Like the research is there. But yeah, it's and I feel like also if maybe you can't find the answer, maybe you have to take that journey and give other people the answer. Maybe that's what you're meant to do as well. 'Cause I feel like sometimes there are things that I looked for and I didn't know, couldn't find the answer, and I had to just go through it myself. And then now I'm able to provide that information. And I think it's important to recognize the privilege of being able to provide that information and sharing. Like, I feel like sometimes people can be a little selfish, and you lose nothing from sharing what you've learned. Whether, it's through coaching, through podcasts, through whatever it is, share that, put it out there in the world for others. Because maybe that's what your purpose is meant to be. Maybe you're supposed to go through these difficult moments so that you can come out the other side and help other people that are going through these difficult moments.
Yeah. And that's exactly why I love to share voices from all different perspectives on this show, is because someone out there is going to resonate with your story. There is at least one person out there that's been waiting to hear your words
Yeah,
and be like, oh, I'm not the only one that's going through this, and like breathe that sigh of relief. Be like, cool, like I'm not completely alone in this
yes,
struggle. What did they
exactly.
do? And it might not be the path that you're going to take exactly, but at least you'll feel seen and know, hey, it's okay to want something different than what you have right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's the beauty of it. And just especially now that different types of people are able to have these experiences, because like let's say before, the type of people that you would see having these experiences are very specific. So it would struggle. It would be kind of a struggle. But now it's like there's so many different kinds of people, different experiences, different ages, different situations, and we're all going through all these things. It's like there's someone out there. And if someone isn't out there, be that someone for someone else. And I think that's so motivating and so beautiful and just exciting. I think people should be excited. I think we worry too much about perfection, and just think of it like as a mini legacy. This is a legacy you leave behind, your experience, your things that you learn, that can truly be the legacy that you leave behind for others.
Yes, I love it. And one last question I love to end with is, how is play a part of your life today? What do you do in your life that feels like play? And I know that you're a storyteller, play personality now.
Yeah, I really be going on Instagram and just ranting on my stories and telling. I think just like putting myself in these situations where I get these experiences and these like stories I get to tell, and then I get to share it with my friends. And it's funny because some people might be like, "Oh, who do you think you are? Like you think you're an influencer?" Blah, blah. I'm like, I don't really care about that. It's just like, and it's funny because sometimes I I fall into self-doubt and I'm like, am I like cringe for like talking about this stuff on my stories, acting like I'm some celebrity or something? But then I get feedback from like friends or people replying and they're like, oh my God, I love when you share your stories. Oh, this experience is that. This made me laugh. This made me think. And I'm like, wow, like sometimes we get so in our head about like what we might be perceived as that we forget that like there's also the possibility of being perceived in a very positive way. And I think that's where I enjoy myself, just kind of like just taking the time to just sit down and like share all these thoughts and ideas that I have in my head and being able to feel comfortable doing so. And also just like I get to host a lot of activities. And before there were a lot of things that I didn't do because I didn't want to do it by myself. And now I have this group of people that I can be like, hey guys, I want to experience this. Who wants to go do it with me? And people are like, oh, me. And then we go and just do things. Oh, I want to go to this restaurant. Oh, I want to do a picnic. I don't have to like wait around. I can just find people who are also trying to do the same thing. And it's just like, I get to have fun with that. I get to just have the experiences that maybe I didn't get to have in the past and just like decide what experiences I want to go through or I want to share with others. And, you know, I think that keeps my life very, very playful and fun.
I love it. Yes. Yes. I also love the variety of activities that you throw out there too. Like the fun picnics.
Yeah.
Definitely. If you're in Medellin, join this group. I can link it in the show notes. Thank you so much. This has been such a beautiful conversation about your story, about life, about love. My favorite way to spend Valentine's Day, in all honesty, is being with friends. So this is
Yes,
perfect.
absolutely.
I know that you are working on a few things, and people will probably have questions for you. So I'd love if you could share how people can reach you, the types of services that you provide as well, and yeah, just take it away.
I think Instagram would probably be the best way. My Instagram is Elky Ramirez, ELKYRAMIREZ. There's not a lot of Elkys out there, so it's pretty easy to find me on pretty much all social media. And what is really hard to find is a keychain, but it is what it is.
Yes, I know that struggle very well.
Yes. Right now, I'm definitely working on the building the WhatsApp group. If you're coming to Colombia, if you're coming to Medellin, if you're nervous, if you're trying to find a community, if maybe you're not melanated, but you're still looking for a community, feel free to also reach out to me because there are so many communities out here for so many different types of people. I know other people just like me, building groups, sharing. And so it doesn't have to just be what I'm building. There's many opportunities out here, many things out here. I'm always happy to help. If you do decide to message me with the questions ahead of time because you know people sometimes are little creeps and they'll be like hello and I'm like should I or should I not reply. So if you have questions, just let me know immediately because otherwise sometimes I get message requests and I'm like maybe they need help, and in the past I've given the benefit of the doubt and turns out that they were just trying to waste my time. So feel completely comfortable to just immediately ask me all the questions and I will reply and I will let you know and I will help however I could. Just act like we're friends from forever and be straight up and direct with me.
Yes, and I will link all that information in the show notes. And also, it was just really great to chat and connect and go a little
Yes.
deeper on your story as well. Thank you again for sharing your story of transformation, connection, and play and love with us today. I'm so grateful to have met you back in Playa del Carmen and now have you on as a guest here. Thank you all, navigators, for tuning in to today's episode. I hope Elky's story resonated with you and it helps you transform your life through travel and maybe head over to Colombia and Medellin and join Elky in one of these events. Thanks, Elky, for coming on
No,
today.
thank you. I've been, like I told you before, I've had this on my to-do list and I've been so excited to do it and it just hadn't been working out, and then so I'm really happy, and especially for Valentine's Day because like friendship is so beautiful and love and everything. So at the end of the day, it worked out when it needed to work out. Again, life doing its thing, right? So I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for you to have me on here, and even just grateful for you to create something like this. And I admire, you know, the courage to see something you want to do and just going for it and making it happen, because you're going to be helping a lot of people. Even if it's just one or two people, you are going to make such a big difference in their lives, and that's so beautiful. But knowing you, this is going to be a huge thing. You're going to help so many people. So many people
Aww. Thank you.
it's just, there's people that you're like, yep, that person is going to make a difference, and you are one of those people. So I'm very excited, and I have been excited to see your journey and everything you do and everything you come up with, and just know you have a huge supporter over here, and I'm excited to see everything that you are going to continue bringing. And I'm just happy that you took that leap and just trusted that things were going to happen, and I'm so happy it worked out as well. So
Oh,
applause
thank
for
you. And
you.
likewise, I love seeing your journey as well and supporting you in all your endeavors too. And I think that's what makes like a really beautiful connection
Yes.
also, is cheering each other on in
Yes.
your life path and seeing you all kind of just go for it, take those risks and like design that life that you're meant to live. So thank you. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you for being on. And thank you, navigators, for staying on. And we will see you all in the next adventure. As we wrap up another beautiful and insightful episode, I want to leave you with an opportunity to deepen your journey of connection. So head over to travelnotsescape.com/friends to explore the Passport to Connection program. This is a unique one-day live virtual workshop and monthly mastermind that's designed to empower you on your journey of connection. And this goes from connecting back into yourself, reigniting your spirit of play, understanding what you value for yourself and in friendships, where to find these people, especially while you're traveling, and then once you actually meet them, how to turn those connections into friendships, handle rejection, handle filtering for like-minded individuals, and then once you're friends, how to actually maintain these connections, especially when time and distance are a factor. So this is a one-day live virtual workshop because I wanted to make sure you got all of this knowledge right away so that you can start connecting with people. So if you're going on a trip or if you're moving soon, I wanted you to have all this information, all of these actionable insights right at your fingertips. And you will immediately be joined by a small group of like-minded individuals that are going on the same journey. So you are also building community right along with getting all the information that you need. So go ahead and head to travelnotsescape.com/friends. I have more information on there. I am creating a very intimate group for this workshop, so make sure to sign up soon so you can secure your spots. And I am so excited to welcome you all into the program. Until next time, keep exploring, connecting, and playing, and safe travels, navigators.